DKB Ice Canal in Altenberg in Germany. Sunday morning is 4-man day at stop 6 of the Wiesmann FIBT World Cup Tour. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to a miserly, drizzly Altenberg. I'm Martin Haven. Sitting alongside me in the booth is Olympic champion from Canada, Kaylee Humphries. And Kaylee, everywhere in Europe's been pretty wet this week, and Altenberg hasn't escaped. What's that going to mean for this track today?
For this track today, I mean, the straightaways, especially with this all this rain, are going to be super slick. I mean, the sleds are going to kind of be wobbling around a little bit hydroplaning. The track crew is going to have a very difficult time in making sure that the corners don't frost up. When the corners frost up, it makes it difficult, especially to go from super frosty conditions to super slick conditions. The pilots are going to have a very difficult time trying to adjust as they head down this track.
Well, talk us down. First of all, a really long start, so power there is going to be vital.
The start here is so critical. The first three corners, as you're seeing, are super flat, and the start here, no different, extremely long, definitely the longest and flattest start that we have on the whole entire World Cup circuit. It starts to pick up there in corner 3. That's when pressure really starts to build. Again, you head into this flat section where you can't make any mistakes. Corner 4 down in all the way through corner 7 here and into corner 8. You got to be smooth. Corner 9, this is probably one of the more difficult corners. It's just a little bit too long, and so that's a very difficult one, especially in 4-man Kreisel. This is the tightest Kreisel corner that we have on the whole entire circuit. Extremely challenging as well. Corner 11, 12, these ones, although they look little, the speed really starts to build and pick up here. 13 into 14, again, super close transition. Sometimes makes for a bit of a sketchy ride. Straightaway, again, you got to nail that straightaway to really make sure that you take any speed with you through this bottom part, down in through 17, and you are finished.
Well, we've seen, as in so many other tracks, you can win or lose the race here from corner 1 to corner 17. Every single one, there's nothing that you can ignore, and it's going to be absolutely critical, especially in these slippery conditions, to be right on the money. Start record dates back to 1996. Coach Christoph Langen of the German team was then competing. He set the start record then, and Andre Langer set the track record back in 2008. Not going to see those broken today. Alexander Zubkov is our World Cup points leader. He's won 4 of the 5 races so far, and the last time out in La Plagne, France, it was a first ever win in 4-man for Beat Hefti, the Swiss driver. In fact, Hefti was part of the last 4-man win for Switzerland as well, back in 2005, when he was the brakeman for Martin Annen. Cedric Grand and Elmar Schaufelberger, I think, were the other men in that 4-man crew. So Hefti returning Switzerland to the 4-man winner's circle for the first time in over half a decade. Well, Lyndon Rush there and everybody else out in the car park at the top, and it's pretty miserable conditions. Ice is hovering just above freezing, air temperature around 4-5 degrees, and humidity, well, it's more than 100% because it's actually liquid air coming down on top of you. Despite which, the small town of Altenberg and the neighbouring villages always produce a good crowd here because this is so much a part of their heritage, this track. Well, Thomas Florschutz will be the first man off. He won yesterday's 2-man race. In fact, he wasn't alone in winning yesterday's 2-man race. Junior world champion Francesco Friedrich, who's also from this Altenberg region, he was a joint winner, so the crowd were doubly happy yesterday. Max Arndt will go off second, Manny Mahata third, so Germany getting the 1, 2, 3 random start draw. It's not a fix, it comes out of a hat. And last man off the top of the hill will be Patrice Savelle of Monaco. He is really missing having the Sellers Brown on the back of his sled this year. The Monegasque results from the last couple of seasons have really slipped down the order. Well, certainly the Germans will be looking to try and sweep the podium here, Kaylee, as they did in the 2-man race. So Lyndon's got to try and do what he couldn't quite manage to hang on to yesterday, which is get in that top 3.
Yeah, he definitely will. Challenges up there, but I know him and his guys, Jesse Lascelles and Neville, are really going to be gunning for all the Germans today, along with many other teams. So it should be a very good and close 4-man race today.
The green colours of the local region of Saxony are on the sled of Thomas Florschutz. Germany 2 with Andy Bredal, Kevin Kuska, and brand new brakeman, a World Cup debut on the back for Torsten Margis on the Germany 2 sled. Star record 5:04. The sled gets underway in 5.19. Kaylee, the one bit of the track that is dry is that start area.
It is, but because it's dry, it's going to be a little bit frosty. The temperature is warm outside, so that definitely, you know, that little bit of resistance makes it hard for those guys pushing. But 5:19, that's a strong start, and that definitely is going to set the pace for the rest of the guys to come. I think that's going to be one of the top starts that we see today for sure.
Listen to the sound of these 4-man sleds thundering down this track. What you don't want to hear is too much rattling, which means that components are loose inside the sled. And this nearly 700 kilos, 1,400 pounds, whistling down at over 70 miles an hour.
So far, Thomas is having a great run. Few little things, kind of 12-13, but came dead straight out of 9, no hits, dead straight out of 15. 55.49 finish time. That's a great time to really set the pace. As we saw yesterday, he knows how to drive this track with winning the 2-man World Cup. The guys gave him a great start, so this will really set the pace. And I know this week the two teams that have won all the 4-man races so far are not here, with Zubkov and Hefty. So we'll have a new winner this week regardless.
We will have a new winner indeed. Out of 12, little skid there. There's so much weight to try and change direction quickly there, Kaylee.
It is, and corner 13 there, I mean, you just see the guys' helmets whip around there. It's an extremely tight transition, and you really got to head in there nice, especially in 4-man, because anything is possible in those corners. And he controlled it well and did what he can. That was about the only part on the track, though, we saw him struggle slightly.
Well, this 4-man race last year was the end of his season. He tore a calf muscle in the first heat, continued to the bronze medal position, but the race was won by this man, Max Arndt. Now, he's got Marco Hubenbecker, Alex Rödinger, and Martin Putzer on the crew of Germany 1, so he's got the 3 strongest men, and he's actually Germany's best-ranked driver as well in the overall standings.
This should be another extremely fast start from the Germans. It'll definitely, you know, another strong time, 5:20, just
1/100th away.
The pace from before. And again, Max, a great pilot, so we'll see what we can do. German against German now.
Well, this is going to be very tight indeed if the start is anything to go by. These first few slow corners, Kaylee, absolutely critical to keep them clean and keep your speed on board.
Yeah, they definitely are, especially the flatter section. Slight little wobble there out of 9. Nothing
tiny
major,
advantage.
though.
He's a little up on speed as well, just half a kilometre an hour quicker going into the Kreisel and coming off it.
A much better transition than we saw from Thomas Florschitz in 12:13.
2K's up now, he's growing the speed, 77 miles an hour towards the line, and a 55.21. Now, we talk about 2800s as if it's a big margin, and in this sport it is. 2800s, it takes you 10 hundredths of a second to blink your eyes. That's how tiny we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, it's minuscule, the difference, but 2/10ths down by the bottom, if not a little bit more, that's huge. I mean, he had it right from the very beginning, great velocity from the guys. Little bit high at the exit of 9 there, comes across. You see him kind of struggle, the sled squirrely a little bit as it heads down that straightaway. That straightaway is going to be a little bit slick from the water, but he controlled it well. Again, hit the side of the wall. Little bit there trying to recover. You see him trying to move those front runners there to kind of straighten it out. The weight of the 4-man is really great, and it's hard to adjust.
Interesting, of course, Max didn't race yesterday. He was never down to do the 2-man, so he was only training in 4-man, so maybe that's just helped him get himself a little better shape. Now, Manny Mahata with Alex Mann, Jan Speer and Christian Poser, 5th place in last year's race. He will definitely be looking to up the ante and get in amongst the medals. On the podium yesterday in the 2-man race, behind the joint winners, Thomas Florschutz and Francesco Friedrich of Germany. Well, we've had a 5:19 and a 5:20. He couldn't quite get his arm in. A 5:28 now. That leaves him, Kaylee, nearly a 1/10 of a second behind at the start.
And that's really hard to come back from. And so, you know, Manny knows what he's doing. He knows how to drive a sled, especially a 4-man. He's an extremely talented pilot, but it's a little bit hard to come back from a 1/10 of a disadvantage at the start. I mean, now he's dropped to 15 hundredths behind, but we'll see if he can bring that back.
little bit of a slide. Again, a long slide down the straight to the Kreisel. He's actually faster than Florschutz in terms of speed at that stage. On the exit, still the same speed as Thomas Florschutz. So this is the battle for second, not for the lead. In fact, he's not quite on pace to be second, maybe in third place. Third it is, 55.54, so 0.05 of a second slower than Thomas Florschutz. Now, that is going to be a tight battle.
It definitely is. I mean, Manny Mahata was behind by a 10th at the start. To be able to bring that back to only 0.05 behind by the finish, that's some great driving. But definitely, you know, there's work to be done for a second run.
There's no questioning his four-man skills. His first ever World Cup race was in Whistler, and of course he went out and won the four-man gold medal on his debut, so you can't argue with that. Of course, being Germany 3 does mean that you don't have the fastest pushmen.
No, definitely not. I mean, they did what they could, but it's you can see it with the 10th behind difference from the top two starting crews.
He had a little trouble getting his left arm in. It didn't seem to affect the run into turn one. Again, you can see how much the sled has to move to get around these corners. And there is Mahata with his trademark spectacles.
One of the only guys on tour that I think we've ever seen in this sport to actually drive down with his glasses on.
Well, here's the man who had start draw number 1 in the first heat of the two-man yesterday. He gets another good start draw. Jan Verber of the Czech Republic with Dominik Sushi, his two-man brakeman Jan Stoklaska and Michal Vasek on the back of the sled. Last year, 11th place was his season's high in Altenberg. Okay, what about going off 4th? I mean, he's going to have some of the best ice he'll have in his season, probably.
Again, this race for him, starting number 1 yesterday, 4 today. This is, I mean, he's seeing the top of the top, and he's up with among the best. And, you know, he definitely did a really great job yesterday, and I don't expect anything different from him today.
I tell you what, I'm impressed with that start. 5.28 from Manny Mahata's German crew, 5.30 from his Czech four-man. That's a good getaway by anybody's margin.
That definitely is.
Gee, that was a little wild, though.
Corner 9 is a very difficult corner, especially in four-man. The weight, it's there, and you can't do much. It's kind of like driving a school bus versus a race car, and when you make a mistake, there's no coming back from it, and corner 9 definitely is one of the hardest corners on this track.
At the moment, he is ahead of Manny Mahata. Little mistake there out of 12, and on the straight is not enough to put him behind. The Czech Republic go third. The Czechs are separating the Germans. Of course, we're about 12 miles from the Czech border. It's about an hour's drive to the capital, Prague. So this is home ice for them, but oh my word.
This is exciting.
I mean, 2 highlights of his season. One was that nose up into the woodworking Whistler, and look at this. What a drive.
You see him come around. He goes really high in corner 9. Again, not a bad line, but the pressure takes him back up, and there's not much you can do. He's really just got to try and crank it off and hope that he comes out of 9, and he did. But close.
Wow.
Very close call.
Now I'm going to have to start going back to find out what's his best ever four-man result. I'm not sure I've got the time, but if he can hold on to a podium, Jan Verber, my word, no wonder he's smiling. Wow, well, that's woken us up. Well, now who's got the moves? Next up is Simone Battazzo of Italy. Simone Fontana, Constantino Ughi, and William Frulani. Now, this is a new four-man lineup. 3 prime specimens of beef coming in here on this Italian crew. And Jan Verber of the Czech Republic, Kaylee's just pointing out, only 100th of Thomas Florschutz in second. Have the first 2 or 3 sleds had more frost on the track? Is the track going to get quicker now? Are we going to see the Germans struggling to hold a lead?
Potentially, who knows? It'll come down to consistency for second run.
Oh, first ever load from the crew, and the knee doesn't go in from Simone Fontana until they're almost in turn 1.
5:40, I mean, that's a 10th off the pace, and that's hard to come back from.
But from the Italians to be a 10th off the pace is actually a really good start for a brand new crew. Okay, half a second down at the moment. Some of that momentum lost in the first few corners, but look at this, good lines from Battazzo. He's a real star two-man driver, a little high maybe in the Kreisel on that second wave. Good
You
speed.
see the crew's heads bobbling around a little bit, but definitely, you know, for a new, inexperienced crew, they're sitting very aerodynamically. You don't see much of, you know, the heads or shoulders. Heads are bobbling around a little bit, so they're going to want to work on that. Any sideways movement, I mean, that just makes hard work for the pilot.
Well, 5th place at the moment, 55.91. And it's, as I said, an entirely new crew. It's their first ever World Cup run for the 3 men behind Simone Battazzo. I tell you what, this is what Battazzo needs, like guys like Patrice Savelle. He needs big, explosive power at the start to help him get the power he needs.
He does. For a World Cup debut, though, this, you know, the start is good. It's just definitely hard to come back from being a 10th behind.
Yeah. Again, you can see the man at 2 struggling to get his knee around the driver, so Battazzo's trying to get his line into corner 1. There's a knee coming in under his elbow. Very high second pressure there, maybe.
Yeah, definitely missed that second pressure a little bit. And you see the brakeman's heads kind of bobbling around a little bit. They really need to be bearing the front of that helmet into the guy in front of them. Number 2 man sets up number 3 and 4 and makes for a solid ride.
Wet conditions here may be producing some very entertaining results. What can Jürgen Lewacke do? Markus Sammer, Mate Juhart, who was his 2-man brakeman yesterday, and Sebastian Höfler on the back of this Austrian sled. A pretty disappointing set of runs yesterday. Can he turn that around inside his head? That took a long time to get his hands in. Luckily, it's a long straight run down to the first corner. 5:44 is the slowest start we've seen so far. Here are a couple of bumps and bangs, which means he's not getting on and off the corner as smoothly as he's like.
Nice exit at 9, straight down the straightaway into Kreisel.
1:13.4 there. Fastest speed was 1:14.2. .116.6 on the exit of the Kreisel is top speed. No one quicker than 1:24.3 either. Is he going to close the gap at all? No, only by 100th. But boy, they were producing some speeds at the bottom that only the best German run could match. Well, one thing that shows, perhaps, is that despite his problems at the top, the track is not getting slower yet. Of course, as you know from experience elsewhere, Kaylee, when you put rain on ice, it does start to melt the ice, so that means they have to have the refrigeration on hard to prevent that happening.
It definitely does. I mean, this transition here from 11 into 12, a little bit higher than I would like to see. We saw him do that in the 2-man yesterday as well. I think he needs to control that a little bit. The heads of the 4-man guys behind the pilot that you see there, you don't want to see those heads. You don't want to see them moving. Aerodynamically, it's bad, and it causes sideways pressure and movement, which makes it harder for the pilot to control.
There is Jürgen, as ever, with a smile on his face. And he lies in 6th place at the moment. Next up, top of the ice, Lyndon Rush of Canada, Jesse Lumsden, Lascelles Brown and Neville Wright in the crew. Didn't race here last year. There was no race the year before. So it's 3 seasons since Lyndon has raced here, although, of course, they did do training last year, so he's had a few 4-man trips. Big hit from this powerful Canadian crew. Just off the podium yesterday. 5:26, that's a good competitive start. 49.6 Ks in the first corner, Kaylee. Lots of muscle means lots of momentum.
Yeah, great velocity. It's that's what you want as a pilot. It's not just about the actual start time. It's about the speed and how much momentum you can put into that sled as you go into the first couple corners.
600s behind at the start, 1800s back now, 2/10 into the Kreisel, 1:13.8. It's about the same as Mahata and a fraction quicker than Florschutz, so we're going to see a top 3 run here.
Rough transition, 11-12, made for a hard exit, 12-13, but those 4-man guys are really sitting nice and solid in the back of that sled. You don't really see the helmets moving at all, which is awesome to see.
22.9 at the bottom for a fifth place run, 55.58. Now the grouping is pretty close. First to second is a 28 hundredths gap. Second to third, 100th. Third to fourth, 400ths. Fourth to Lyndon Rush in fifth, 400ths of a second. So we've got some very close battles behind Max Arndt.
As he comes around there, corner 12, definitely high. He knew it. He grabbed it, tried to get it off that corner. That corner can be definitely tricky, and it caused him to come across and hit the wall, which, which cost him definitely a couple hundredths right there.
Of course, he, like everybody else, will have seen the British sled crash there in a women's race, so you know you can be in danger if you get too high on the exit.
Especially in a four-man where the weight is just that much heavier and there's not much you can do about it. So he's definitely going to want to clean up that one corner, which should hopefully for second run move him up a couple spots. We'll see.
Max Arndt needs a very tight race here in Altenberg, Germany. Martin Haven and Kaylee Humphries, the Olympic champion, watching the action with you. Next up, Milan Janešák. Now, when has Slovakia had a top 10 start draw in recent memory? It's been possibly never before, I would think. He gets 8th ice. Now, that has got to give him a chance to really show what he can do. He's got the kit. Can they get a decent start to give him a run down the hill here?
The start is really going to be what's critical for him. That's where he struggles the most, competing against the rest of the top guys. He knows how to drive. He's got good equipment. It's just, it's the start.
He's a 43-year-old businessman from Bratislava, so he's not a 20-year-old pro athlete or a 35-year-old pro athlete. And he's got to get the big muscle behind him. They start 5.48. Interesting to see what he can produce in terms of a drive here, Kaylee. It looks pretty smooth. Couple of little taps there. 1:11.8 is the lowest speed we've seen into the Kreisel. 1:13.3, he had good speed on the exit, but again, not as quick as his rivals so far. Good run, kept it straight over that crest. 56.6 slide. Well, last year he finished in 20th place, made the cut for the second heat. No worries about that this year. There's 17 sleds, so anybody who completes the run will get a second heat. I'm just going to see where he ends up. He may well be in the top dozen. Well, Kaylee, one of the things that, as effectively an amateur, he will lack is time on the ice pre-season, post-season. And that shows not just in the start, but especially in some of the corrections that he's trying to make down the track.
Yes, definitely. I mean, the more time you get on ice, the more time you get in a sled definitely makes a difference. He comes out of corner 6 here. You see the back of the sled kind of slide out, causes him to go a little early on a 7. The guys kind of number 2 and 3 get bumped around a little bit. Again, that's all extra movement and little hundredths of a second each and every time that happens. Little too early, little too late on exits of corners here. It just kills your time and speed, which we saw.
He's the ultimate enthusiast. Next up, perhaps the ultimate starter in the business now, Oskars Melbardis of Latvia, with Damas Triskins, who was on the 2-man yesterday, Arvis Vilkasta and Intars Dambis. Now, 2 of those 3 names, Oskars was with behind Jānis Minins in the Olympic Games. Now he's the driver. 7th place here last year. Let's see if he can get in among the medals. Well, that is a huge start, 5.17. Leaves him 300ths up on leader Max Arndt.
Slight tap there, added 2 into 3. That's that'll kill his time and speed a little bit.
Claimed a 4-man medal in La Plagne in France.
Little taps on the straightaway. You can see the sled kind of fishtailing, moving around. Again, with this rain, it's going to be a lot more difficult in the straightaways to be able to control that sled. But
wow, he's in 2nd place with good speed, 1:15.4.
A few little taps, but that, again, that sled is running straight. No major issues, and they've really taken the start advantage. Tart 55.45 finish time puts him in 2nd place right now. that's a great result, and it'll be about consistency for him and making sure he can have another run, second run.
Yeah, we almost saw a smile there from his coach as well. Sanders Bruce is looking pretty happy with that. He moves into second place. So it's Arndt of Germany, Melbardis of Latvia, Florschutz of Germany, Verber of the Czech Republic, Mahata of Germany, and Rush of Canada.
Like, you see the two side guys, the pilot, the brakeman, all of them are just so jacked and big and powerful and strong, and they definitely, after curve one, they're right in amongst the two top German teams for fastest speed. So that's where you want and need to be in order to be one of the top teams.
So you've got to get the power and the long run down into the first corner. Little bit of wiggle on the straightaway, but he managed to keep speed on board. I mean, that's a really strong run from him.
You did. You definitely saw the experience come in there, where he's learning each and every race, each and every year. And the more he drives, the better he's going to get.
Union flag flies for Great Britain's John Jackson. 35-year-old Army Dr. Henry Nwume and 25-year-old ex-Royal Marine Jim Galvin on the back of the sled, and Andy Matthews at 4. Well, Henry's been in a couple of World Cup races before now. He's had 2 tours of Afghanistan as well in between times. He used to play rugby for Wasps, so he's a multi-discipline athlete. Jacko, after a slightly disappointing two-man race yesterday, be really looking to try and get his head around this 4-man. Huge figure of Henry Nwume on the right-hand side of the sled as you look at it. They drop in nicely, 5.35. 49 kilometers an hour. We saw Melbardis with 50 kilometers an hour at the start.
Definitely came across rough transition from 3 to 4. Turned a little too hard, a little too long, and we saw him hit the wall. And you know, the velocity that you take at the start definitely will be minimized from that.
Jacko's #1 Great Britain starting crew are not here this weekend, so these are the backup guys. Nevertheless, once they're on board, it's down to the driver still to produce the goods. 113.8 kilometers an hour. Look at the focus, the furrowed brow, very clearly seen. 9th place at the moment in front of Milan Janaszak. 56.24. He'll be looking to tidy up a few of those little errors. Hasn't been the greatest weekend here for GB Bobsleigh. Paula Walker in 3rd place in the women's race after the first heat, crashed out in 12. Jacko slipped down the order yesterday on his second heat as well. And Kaylee, so much of this game is between your ears.
It definitely is. As you see him come around there, the frost on the corners is going to make it difficult for these pilots, and some of the corners are going to be a little bit slick, and some of the corners are going to be a lot more grippy. And as he came around corner 3, he definitely, you know, just took a little too much aggressive. Corner 13, a little bit of a rough transition. It can get really sketchy in there, especially in a 4-man. It's a tight transition. There's not much room, and if you are at all late going into corner 12, you know, you're really just trying to recover in 13.
So 10 of our 17 sleds down, and the hurry-up offense for Ugis Zalims, Latvia 2. He doesn't want any more rain to fall before he gets started than is humanly possible. They get away immediately. First ever World Cup race here in Altenberg. It's only his 3rd season as a driver. He started after being a brakeman in the Olympic Games. Like Oscar Melbardis, he was a brakeman in Vancouver, Kaylee, and really having to learn very fast indeed how to get these trucks down the track.
Definitely hung it all on the end of Kreisel. That was a little bit sketchy. Just if you come down a little bit. So a few of the major corners here. Exit of 9, exit of Kreisel, 12 into 13. Those are some of the spots where it gets a little bit rough and a little bit sketchy, but he managed to make it through those sections. Definitely hold your breath in some of those sections and you can just kind of see it coming, but he made it through. 4-man down, and you know, he'll be looking to make it a little bit smoother for a second run, but his top was extremely good up until 9. A few little squiggles here and there, and
He managed to identify most of the problem areas on the track for us, didn't he?
He definitely did. The pressure in Kreisel, it's a hard and challenging one to be able to get, and he just comes down, and then the pressure takes him back up, and he was fortunate enough just to be able to really crank it off there, and the weight of the guys kept him shiny side up, but that's as close as it can get, and as close as anybody wants it to get.
Yeah, Coach Sanders Proust is waiting for the impact. Luckily, that never came. So Ugi Salim showing problems in 1, 4, 9, exit Kreisel. Yeah, pretty much everywhere. But next up for Poland, David Kupczyk. Now, he finished 17th in last year's race. And he has been struggling this year to make the cut in the second heat. He was 17th in Winterberg, but only 22nd in La Plagne in the last race before Christmas. Without the pressure of having to try and make it into a second heat, maybe that'll just allow him to flow into the drive a little bit more, Kaylee. The less you have to think about, perhaps the better it's going to run.
Definitely. I think that's for most things. The easier that you can make it and the more simplistic things are, it definitely frees up your mind just to focus that much more intently on your job at hand.
If you don't have the paranoia of watching what's coming behind you, then you can look a little further in front, maybe, literally as well as metaphorically.
Ooh, that was real high at the exit of 9. That was, again, another real close call.
Long skid down the straight. Oh, he was barely facing in the right direction at all coming into the Kreisel, and 11 and 12 were very rocky too. There's going to be a couple of guys in the crew praying frantically in Polish that they get down safely. Most of the drama has passed, and a massive skid past the line as well. That was a little wild and perhaps not as focused as he would have hoped for.
I think we're going to see that. The last couple of sleds, not the most experienced pilots. And, you know, the major corners that are the challenging corners where we usually see things go wrong. Exit of 9, exit of Kreisel, either 11 into 12 and or 13 into 14. And those are some of the sketchier corners. And those are the ones where if you know what's coming, you know, it is intimidating, especially in a 4-man where the weight is that much heavier and, you know, there's not much you can do. Goes really high on 11 there, which causes a huge, huge crossover and jump for the 4-man because the pilot's got to be able to catch it as soon as that sled comes over and onto the pressure. But then with the track being frosty because of the rain, it just catches and the whole back of the sled lifts up. Again, that's as close as you want it to ever get.
Wow. You think the forces involved in bouncing 1,500 pounds, 700 kilos off the ice. That's pretty massive. Dorin Grigori of Romania now, 18th in this race last year. Had a decent run yesterday in the 2-man, and that all helps build your confidence. Let's see what they can produce. We have to run so far over the brow, Kaylee, that it kind of sees the track bottlenecking around you as you're trying to load.
It definitely does. Sometimes it's good. It gives you kind of markers in order to figure out when to load and to make it consistent, but sometimes it can be a challenge because you're not used to pushing that far, and we are power speed athletes. We like the shorter tracks, definitely.
The number 1 Romanian driver, Nicolae Strate, over the last few years, broke his wrist in a motorcycle accident in Lake Placid just before the start of the season. He should be back next weekend in Berchtesgaden, Bavaria. That might not be a bad thing for some of these brakemen. At the moment, this is a 12th place run. Off an 11th start, they did get up to 9th before things started to go squirrely in Omega. 13th spot. Yeah.
Coach not happy. There was a couple spots that were a little bit sketchy on that run. You can see pilot not happy either.
Yeah.
And at some point, it's just about baking it down and less about having a clean run.
Well, when you have a rocky ride like that, nobody in the sled is thinking, yeah, that went well.
No, definitely not. It's more the times when you just end up praying a little bit.
Yeah. When you're still hanging on the exit of the Kreisel for like 7 or 8 seconds, you think, oh, come on, come down.
You do. It starts to come down, and then the pressure just takes you back up. As a pilot, there's not much you can do except for, you know, just crank that steering as hard as you can and just hope for the best.
Well, Dorian Grigore got down safely, so the crew will have to survive a second run now. Whether they're happy or not about that remains to be seen. Next up for France, Loic Kosterg. Roman Heinrich was on the two-man sled with him yesterday. Damien Mech and Jeremy Boutin. They are the four-man crew. Now, yesterday, in the top 10, for the first time since 2002 for France. So, for rookie driver Loic Kosterg, his World Cup season started this year. It was a massive, massive step. Bruno Mijon, the last man to take a French sled into a top 10 finish. And, of course, he was a real four-man expert. Wonder what the French can do here. Damien Mech on the right-hand side of your picture. Boy, he's got some leg speed. He's not the tallest guy, but he's got great turnover. 5:38. He's some 1800s off the leader at the start. If they could produce a top 10 finish again here, that would just be an enormous boost for this young rookie driver. Kosterg, the driver, 25 years old, has been ice driving for just 2 seasons. This is year number 3. Decent speed, 1:12.5. (1:13.6), and that's an indicator of a good Kreisel. He picked up speed, long skid there, 1:20.5 though, that's very good. At the moment, he is in the top 10, he is in 10th place. Well, he slipped a little below the Kreisel from 8th rather, down to 10th, but Kelly, there have been a lot less tidy runs from more experienced drivers.
Yeah, there definitely have. He nailed, you know, 11 to 12, 12 to 13, came out nice and clean. Had definitely a big wave at the beginning of Kreisel, but seemed to sort it out. No major issues there. And again, a few little squabbles at a 9 and down that straightaway into Kreisel. So he'll just want to clean those up, but it wasn't one of those runs where you're just, you know, praying that you get down.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Whipped into corner 12 there, a little bit hard. Came off, but again, no major issues going into 14.
A little exit here. The wall comes out at you there, doesn't it, from the exit corner? The wall sort of sticks in and often catches the back bunk, and that just kicks the tail out, and you've got to wait for it to come back, really.
You do, and there's not much else you can do, and as a pilot, it's probably the worst feeling possible.
Kosterg in 10th place for France then. What can Matthias Luthi do for Poland? The Poland 2 driver, just 23 years old, born on January 1st. Last year was his World Cup rookie season, another former brakeman turned driver. A little bit of a long load, 5.5 seconds. David Kupczyk, Poland 1, they started 5.4. This will be the battle for Luthi, will be to try and overhaul his teammate again. Yeah, Kaylee, I'm sure you remember when you started that you had a target that you always wanted to beat, and of course the first target is the one wearing the same suit as you, but with the number 1 on their sled, right?
Yes and no. I mean, realistically, you got to look at it. Sometimes, you know, the same person from your team is a target, and sometimes they're not, and that is really rough.
Yo, okay, he's got it back.
He's down and through.
11, 12, 13 and 14, oh my goodness, 15 and 16 nearly saw him over as well. Wow.
That was definitely a rough ride at the bottom. He had it at the top, good. Came out of 12, went late into 13. You saw bits of his sled or something fall off from corner 12 to 13, 13 to 14. Again, that transition in a 4-man with the 4-man being so much longer, real rough, and you can see it all over the pilot's face.
It up as well. Now, I don't know if that happened in the braking area or whether he was just a little bit blinded on the way down.
I'm going to say that started on the way down, which as a pilot is extremely hard to see when that visor fogs up. It's personally why I like to wear goggles, but when that visor fogs up and you can't see, panic definitely sets in a little bit. the back of that 4-man sled lifting up completely. He's trying to grab it and control it, but the back of the sled's just going in opposite direction. Hits the wall. The back ends up skidding out. His nose was then again into 13, pointing the wrong way. And
well, he went from 11 onto the straightaway down to 13. He didn't even go up corner 12 at all, just hit it as he went by.
Yeah, comes out at 15, goes as late as possible into 16, getting real close to that roof up there, and
well, it's not often you see the driver wincing more than the brakeman when he got out, but they all got rattled around there. 16th of our starters, Michael Cerizet of Belgium. And they finished 19th last year in a field of 26 sleds. Wimmer kit, so a good 4-man sled underneath them.
5:61 start, though. That's the slowest one we've seen. Ooh, major skid, 2 to 3.
Pretty rocky getting into the Omega, so he's really got to get this under control.
I think at this point it's more just about making it down safely, less about actually.
Yeah. 110.5 down into the Kreisel is the lowest speed we've seen. So Mike's 11 and 12, and 13 is a bit violent always, but perhaps more so for them. You know the coach is just going to be holding his breath watching this. Actually tidied up the bottom a little bit better.
He did. A few issues, but nothing major. And the 4-man crew rode extremely well. You didn't see the heads moving. They were all under the cowling.
Because they had their heads between their knees, kissing their ass goodbye. Come on, they were desperate to stay down.
They were, but there was a lot of reason for them to move, and they stayed solid. So in regards to an actual team, kudos for that.
Yeah.
You see them tucked in there, one behind the other. You don't see much except for the pilot's head. Aerodynamically, that's the best position that crew can be in. You see the heads flopping around and getting whipped. That's an extremely rough transition. And, yeah.
Yeah, you really feel that corner 13, don't you?
Oh, yes, you do. Especially in a 4-man where pressure and weight and speed is just that much greater.
Now then, our 17th and final sled of this first of 2 heats, round 6 of the Wiesmann FIBT 4-man World Cup Tour, is from Monaco. Patrice Sevelle, Elie Lefort, Thibaut Desmartins, and Jérémy Torre. They didn't race in the 4-man last year. Good-looking livery on the front of this sled. Let's see if Patrice can put them into the top 10 with it. It looks to me like they have borrowed a German sled. Right-hand starter's handle is still out.
Hopefully somebody sees
Nobody has noticed.
Hold that in, because that staying out the whole way down is not only not fast, extremely dangerous. A, for anybody on the track, but B, for the crew themselves. If that hits a wall, gets stuck, any of the above, that can cause major damage.
Well, the brakemen have not noticed. So far, it's still attached to the sled. What normally happens if it hits the wall is it just gets bent round in its mounting, so it rips the mounting to pieces, which makes the second heat very difficult indeed. Well, it's a new sled to Patrice, and that means that it's going to steer very differently from what he's used to. The bar is now bent. So the FES mechanics are going to have some work to do to sort that out. 57.4 slide. Not the tidiest, all sorts of little problems drawing in there for Patrice Sevelle of Monaco. Well, the brakemen, when they get in, Kaylee, they push a little tab or tag a little lever that's supposed to snap those bars in, like that, but clearly the spring didn't work, and of course the brakeman then has got his head right down. He's not looking around at the scenery to see what's going on, and just to check everything worked, you hit the tabs, they go click, you feel them click, you know the bars are in. In that case, it wasn't.
And you've got the experienced guys that will make sure that they have witnessed both going in once they click those tabs. Generally, you know, they are supposed to go in, but it doesn't always happen, as we just saw there.
Well, Max Arndt of Germany is our race leader. He is a quarter second clear of everyone else. But behind him, boy, we've got a race on our hands. From second down to 6th position, There is just over 1/10 of a second covering the 5 sleds, so there is lots of racing to come. It's by no means certain that Max Arndt, who will go last in the second heat, will be able to romp away with this one. But at the moment, he's done enough to put himself comfortably into a first heat lead. Last year's winner on top here in 2013 as well. There is the standings. Oskars Melbardis, Thomas Florschutz, Jan Verber of the Czech Republic, Manny Mahata and Lyndon Rush. They're all going for the silver medal, and behind them, who knows what other changes may come. Loic Kosterg of France in the top 10 for a second day in a row here. This may well turn into one of his favourite tracks. 17 sleds started, all safely down to various degrees, and will go into the second heat. Well, all the action from Heat 2 coming up live wherever you are watching on TV or on the FIBT.com website. Join us for that. We'll see if Max Arndt can take a second straight 4-man win here in Altenberg.